Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Natalie Boyum, and I am the president and founder of the Defeating Epilepsy Foundation. We are a 501c3 in Southern California, and our mission is to provide the advocacy and educational resources needed to the epilepsy community and our society. We welcome you to our series, Living Healthy with Dr. Kate. Dr. Kate Couchman is a health coach in South Africa. Kate has epilepsy and has a passion to help those battling epilepsy live a happy and healthy life. In this discussion, we will be focusing on the importance of sleep. According to the National Institute of Health, an estimated 50 to 70 million Americans have chronic sleep disorders. Chronic sleep disorders are linked to heart disease, kidney disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, stroke, obesity, and depression. For many battling epilepsy, sleep deprivations can be a trigger for seizures, and many anticonvulsant medications have side effects, such as insomnia. Kate, what is the average amount of sleep time someone with epilepsy should aim for?
Hi, Natalie. Thank you for having me again.
Thank you.
Everyone is unique and requires different amounts of sleep, but the National Sleep Foundation has found that people in general function optimally after they've had between 7 and 9 hours of sleep per night on average. So we may go out and push that, like after a wedding or something, we may have less, but average, we should be aiming for between 7 and 9 per night.
And I think a lot of people, when you hear that number, I think a lot of people, not even just here in the States, but on a global level now with the changes in lifestyle when it comes to work hours and so many things, I think people aren't really getting those numbers. And I'm guilty of it at times myself. And it really does have a very negative impact on our everyday health.
Absolutely. And so many people say, I'm so busy, I can't. And then when I work with my clients and we break down what we're doing during the day, I think it's unbelievable how often we realize that we're wasting time. I do think it's really important to have time to rest and have that lazy time. So, like blobbing in front of TV is important, or taking time out and reading. But if you check how much time you're on your phone, for instance, just scrolling through aimlessly, it's frightening how much time we are doing things like that. And so when we say that we're too busy and we end up going to bed really late, it's interesting if we do a check of what we actually do with our time, if we could schedule in more sleep, we often realize that we are wasting quite a lot of time during the day, and we could focus more on sleeping if it becomes a priority for us.
Oh, and that's very truthful, because I found myself having insomnia. When it would be bad, instead of doing something to relax, I would pick up my cell phone. I had to make a promise to myself after a certain time, I'm not allowed to look at my phone, because I would pick it up and start scrolling. And before I knew it, between reading something or checking my social media pages, a good hour and a half has gone by, and I'm just laying in bed, just not realizing. I'm thinking, okay, I'm just going to relax and unwind. And I'm actually keeping my brain active and causing more harm than good.
Absolutely. And they say that once we've used our phones, then our brain is alert and awake, and the blue light from that can impact our sleep quality for at least 2 hours afterwards. So we may fall asleep, and a lot of people find a distraction a good thing in order to fall asleep, but blue light decreases our sleep quality for at least 2 hours. So therefore, people say, I need my alarm clock to make sure that I wake up on time. 100%. We live by schedules, we need those. But going back to an old-fashioned alarm clock has helped so many people so that they can keep their phones away from them and they're not tempted by their phones and they don't have that vibration going off at night or just the little light shining through from their phone. Improve the quality of their sleep tremendously. And the temptation of, if they wake up in the middle of the night, just checking what the time is, or if they struggle to fall back to sleep and scrolling at that time, just remove the temptation completely.
Oh, yeah. And I didn't realize the blue light could do that. That's really interesting. I never thought of just looking at the phone for a little bit and putting it down, that once I put it down, it was still having an effect on me. So that's really something, people should think about. But along with the chronic illnesses that the National Institute of Health warns us about, are there any other additional chronic problems people with epilepsy can develop?
Yeah, recent research has linked poor sleep to poor gut health, which is where 70% of our immune system lies and 90% of our serotonin is produced. And this has many, many knock-on effects. Poor immunity obviously leads to inflammation in the gut, as well as all over the body, which leads to increased pain and decreased absorption of not only our food, but also our medication.
Oh, wow.
Whilst the lower production of serotonin leaves us predisposed to lower moods as well as anxiety. And serotonin converts to melatonin, which is what controls our sleep-wake cycles. So that can further aggravate our poor sleep, making it a really vicious cycle. They have shown that while we're sleeping, the good bugs or the microbiome in our gut is restored and replenished. So if we don't get a good sleep, then the number of microbes decreases. So it's really important to, and that's where I'm coming from when I say that our immune system can go down, the amount of serotonin can go down, and therefore our moods go down, anxiety increases, and it's a bit of a chicken and an egg situation. That do we have poor gut bacteria and that impacts our sleep, or do we have a poor sleep and that impacts our gut bacteria? There's a strong link there. So we've always known about a gut brain, and now they're showing a link between our sleep, gut, and brain.
Which is really interesting, because I think a lot of people, the one thing sadly we really lack here in America is good education regarding nutrition. And it wasn't until after I had my youngest son and I gained a massive amount of weight without even changing my eating habits, and I kept wondering why. It was a combination of hormones, but also poor gut health from all the years of being on anti-seizure medication and not always eating the cleanest. And I realized how important it was to start getting my gut health under control, how important adding things like probiotics were just making such a difference to help get things the way they needed to be.
Yep. And it doesn't mean that we need to take a probiotic. Because probiotic, I don't know what your supplements are like in the States, but in South Africa, a lot of our probiotics, a multi-strain probiotic may only have 9 different strains. In our gut, we may have up to 1,000 different types, and it's the variety that we're after. So it's really important to have just a general good diet. Things like sugar are going to feed our bad bacteria. So we've always got bad bacteria and we've got good bacteria in our gut. And it's a little bit like a seesaw. Sugar, processed foods are going to feed those bad bugs. So then they come up, and then fiber and nutrients are going to feed the good bugs, especially fermented foods. Our fermented foods, the good bugs love them. And then that's going to keep the bad bugs under control. So we do want to have a nice balance of fiber. If you're not having a lot of fiber, you don't want to suddenly increase it, because then you can bloat, you can have quite a lot of discomfort. So you want to increase it slowly. But foods like yogurt, miso, sauerkraut, kimchi can all be really beneficial in order to support the good bugs in your tummy. And just adding in a little bit, kefir, they may sound a little bit foreign if you haven't come across them before, but really beneficial just to add in as much as possible, because they have up to 400 different strains in some of those foods, as opposed to the strong supplements that you may receive, but only about 9 or a few strains that you can get in the supplement. So if you're treating something specific, 100%, a supplement's great. But if you're going for general variety, then foods are brilliant.
Yeah. Well, I eat a lot of vegetables, and the kefir, which is for anybody who's watching, if they've never heard of it, it's a drinkable yogurt. And I buy some, and I try to have a little bit every day, or at least every other day. And I find just having a little bit in a glass to sip on throughout the morning has made such a difference.
And you can get the water one for those that don't like dairy. You get a water-based kefir, and you get them flavored as well. So they are great. Kombucha is another really good one. You can make it at home, ferment it yourself. So it's quite fun to create them.
Yes.
They are good.
Awesome. So for people with epilepsy who deal with insomnia, what can they do to get a restful night's sleep?
The most important thing is to schedule it. That may sound strange, but having a consistent sleep routine is important to ensure that you get the full amount of sleep that you need. Make it a priority and try to go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, even on the weekends, so that your body produces that melatonin that I mentioned previously. And it starts getting into the routine. Make sure your body is cool, but you are warm enough and the room is completely dark, because your body only produces that melatonin when it's dark. So a nightly routine may look something like, you may want to set an alarm half an hour to an hour before you want to go to bed, and do something that you feel is relaxing. For instance, whether you want to have a bath and start reading a book, getting away from the blue light that we mentioned before. You may want to start dimming the lights so that you've got more and more melatonin being produced. And you may want to practice some relaxation techniques. Turn your phone off, or keep it charging in the kitchen or somewhere away from your bedside table. And then you also want to improve your daytime habits. So what I mean by that is, what you do when you're awake can significantly impact your sleep. So getting a certain amount of physical activity helps. That doesn't mean that you've got to, if you're not active at the moment, and if your epilepsy impacts on exercise, just making sure that you get some sunshine can be helpful, especially the morning light, so that it helps with the melatonin conversion. Avoiding any stimulants too close to bedtime is vitally important. Even eating too close to bedtime is important. One last point is the sleep that you get before midnight is really important. It's been shown that this sleep is better for restoring your body. In fact, every hour of sleep you get before midnight is 3 times more restorative and repairing than the sleep after midnight.
I didn't know that. That's really interesting. I never thought that, because I've always been more of a night owl. So I would, before I had the kids, fall asleep around midnight. I didn't even think about it. So it's really interesting to see how a specific time going to bed could make or break how your body recovers.
It does. And so that scheduling, a lot of people prefer to work in the evening because kids are in bed, it's quiet, you feel like you're productive, but it's amazing how when you change your habits and you're getting that restorative sleep, you feel so much more energized and so much more productive. It can take a little bit of time to switch over because your body's obviously used to going to bed at a certain time. But when it realizes the treat that it's in for, it responds beautifully and you feel so much better.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we have talked many times about the importance of good nutrition. What can you eat? Oh, I'm sorry. Can what you eat have an impact on your sleep?
Yeah. As well as the timing of your meals. So if you eat late at night, or if you eat a heavy meal, your body's so busy trying to digest it that it struggles to rest. It's almost like you can do one or the other. So you want to make sure that you eat early enough, ideally at least 2 hours before going to bed, so that you can rest well. Otherwise, you get into bed and you're tossing and turning, can't seem to find a comfy position. And then, like we mentioned before, eating foods that promote a healthy gut are vital.
Yeah.
So those fermented foods, sufficient fiber, and then avoiding processed foods, avoiding, so many people think that fruit juice is a good alternative to your fizzy drinks, but they've got just as much sugar in them. So we don't want anything that's excessively sweetened. And any kind of juices, even if it's homemade, you think of orange juice, how many oranges you're going to squeeze in order to make orange juice. You wouldn't have eaten all of those oranges, and the orange itself in its totality has got the fiber in it, which the good bugs need in order to, that's their food to survive. So juice, have a little bit if you want to, but it's not a great thing to go with. And artificially sweetened foods, try and avoid them as well. They play havoc on the brain. So as people with epilepsy, we really don't want them.
Oh, no, that's very true. The one thing that I learned the hard way, I remember when I would meal prep, if I wanted a treat, I would get something that was labeled sugar-free, thinking, oh, good, I don't have to, I can, when I was tracking macros. And I didn't realize until I started making a habit of reading labels that a lot of these so-called sugar-free snacks that we have aspartame in them, which is now known to be cancer causing. So it showed me how important it was that if I am going to have something sweet, how to portion it where I can allow myself a little treat, but at the same time I'm not overeating or binging.
Yeah. And those sweet things often, because they taste sweet, I know you and I have discussed it outside of this, but because they taste sweet, your brain then waits for the sugar and can set up further cravings because it's not getting the sugar, it's getting the artificial sweetener instead. And so it can set up a whole vicious cycle and can lead on to all kinds of ailments, which is a whole nother discussion. But honestly, it's worth the sugar-free. If you're that desperate, just have the sugar. Otherwise, alternatives like stevia or xylitol, there's lots of other alternatives that are safe, natural, not going to spike your blood sugars, because as people with epilepsy, we need to be careful of maintaining our blood sugars as well.
Oh no, that's very true. I love things like chai tea, but what I'll do is I won't go to places like Starbucks anymore because of the amount. So what I do is I get a vegan one, and I use the unsweetened almond milk for my in place of cow's milk. And then if I need a little sweetener in it, I put a little stevia in it. And I have found it you get the same great taste from it, but you're not getting pumped full of something, like as you say, processed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think it's good for people. I want people to understand that taking on a healthier lifestyle doesn't mean you can't enjoy things. You can. It's setting the goals and realizing what can you do to enjoy those things. I mean, rather than going to Starbucks every day and having that and damaging your gut, find a healthier substitute in place of it.
100%. And just finding the balance and finding out what works for you, because each of us have our own triggers. And so some people may be absolutely fine and others may not, but we don't realize it's a trigger. So it's about finding what does work and understanding our own bodies. So I think, we're the ones who know our bodies the best. And unfortunately, with something like epilepsy, there's not necessarily a cookie cutter, because there's so many types of epilepsy. And we can't say, you can't have this, you can have that. And there's a prescriptive diet and there's a prescriptive exercise regime. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
But diet and lifestyle can make such a profound difference. I certainly, for myself, since implementing a healthy lifestyle, I'm on less than a quarter of the meds that I used to be on, and I've been seizure free for years on the reduced medication. But I've got to be careful of my stress management and eating a healthy diet. And that doesn't mean salads and things like that. I can enjoy a really good diet. But I'm careful.
Yeah. No, and that makes sense. And it's the same very much for me. I notice if I start, I don't want to say cheating, but I start eating things I know are out of my meal plan a little too much, rather than just having a treat once in a while. I tend to feel more tired and sluggish, and I find it's even harder to focus on my work if I don't follow something. And I mean, I think a lot of people don't realize what a difference just making a minor change like that how that can impact our health.
Absolutely. You're so right.
Yeah. So for someone who is experiencing ongoing insomnia, when is the best time to talk to the doctor about it? And what resources can a doctor prescribe or suggest that can help people with epilepsy deal with insomnia?
In my opinion, it's really important to try and get to the cause of the insomnia. So if it's because you've got racing thoughts that are preventing you from falling asleep, or because your stress levels are through the roof? Is it that your adrenals are burnt out and you get a second wind when you should be going to bed because your cortisol is raised?
Yeah.
Or, yeah, for me, it's about addressing the cause instead of putting a band-aid on. Although there are plenty of different sleeping tablets available, if it is stress that we're dealing with, we know that that's another major trigger for many people with epilepsy. So learning how to manage the stress is absolutely vital in order to manage both the epilepsy and the insomnia. So by all means, talk to a doctor, but make sure you find a doctor who understands you and what your needs are and is
Yeah.
willing to help you find the best solution for you, or even explore going to a health coach or a functional practitioner who explores various options and solutions that are going to work for you. Make sure that whatever your options are, you are 100% comfortable with them.
Oh, absolutely. And I can say I deal with insomnia, and it goes up and down. There's times it's better than others. But I found I recently started with a new neurologist up at USC. And about a month before I saw him, and this is the ironic thing, he had great reviews, and when I saw him, the visit went wonderful. We connected the first session, which really made me happy and gave me some peace of mind. But in the month prior to seeing him, I was having horrible night terrors because of just what I've dealt with over the years dealing with epilepsy. And it just I'd wake up, after having my night terror. When I have night terrors, I either get very angry or I get very scared. And I kept thinking, I already did my homework. I know what I'm facing. Why am I allowing myself subconsciously to tear myself apart as I prepare for this? And one night I laid down and I put my headphones on and I put one of my favorite shows on. But what I did, I didn't look at the screen. I closed my eyes and I just focused on listening. And I found even just hearing something like someone was there, even though, no one was, hearing another voice just relaxed me. And within moments, I was able to fall asleep. So I think it comes down to knowing what triggers us and trying to find how can we either prevent those triggers, or if they do happen, what is the solution to getting ourselves back to where we need to be?
100%. And so, you know, a doctor will generally prescribe a sleeping tablet. But if there's something that's going on, like a night terror, is a sleeping tablet going to get allow you to kind of work through it or deal with it? Or do you need to perhaps go to counseling so that you can deal with it? Or do you perhaps need to meditate or do breathing exercises or journal? Or, there's so many different options that may be supportive. And I'm not saying that sleeping tablets are not a good thing, but if we can get to the root cause of it, then it's gone.
Yeah. And I found
Whereas,
even with oh, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just saying I found that in taking melatonin, there was a time I was taking it on a daily basis to make sure I fell asleep. And then after a while, my body, it didn't start rejecting it, but I could tell I became immune to the level I was taking it. My body was saying, you've been using this as a crutch for too long. I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of going to sleep anymore. Find another route. And it was frustrating, but I look back now at just how, neurotransmitters are, how our bodies function, with anything, even things like medication. Once the body after a while becomes immune to it to a degree, it just doesn't operate the same way.
Yeah. And so often meds, whether there are anticonvulsants, whether they're any kind of meds, what are the side effects? And so the fact that we have to be on anticonvulsants, that's fine. They're a necessity, so we can't argue with those. But do we want to be putting anything else in our body that we can perhaps deal with on another level? Yeah, it may take a bit longer, definitely, if we're going another route, like if we are journaling or if we are breathing or meditating, and it may feel strange if we've never done that because we're comfortable with going to medication.
Yeah.
And exploring some of these other avenues are different and unusual, and being out of our comfort zone is sometimes a little bit challenging, but the results afterwards can be absolutely fantastic. So maybe worth exploring for some people.
Oh yeah, and being able to set reasonable goals to work towards that, even if you can't let's say with something when it comes to gut health with what we eat, even if you try just cutting back on sugar, you might go out and eat something that's not always the best, but working towards transitioning to a healthier diet. If it takes even a little time, I find just setting little goals like that makes such a difference compared to someone going, I'm not going to eat that stuff ever again. And before you know it, a month later, they're back to what they were doing before.
And that's where I find the benefit of working together comes in, is because people set themselves goals and they've got good intentions, but it becomes difficult to maintain. And
Yes.
so having someone like a health coach when the going gets tough, then they can keep referring, and the health coach can be their cheerleader and can help them overcome their obstacles and support them and brainstorm together so that they can come up with the best possible plan moving forward.
Yeah.
So that they achieve their goals and have the outcomes that they want.
And for our followers today who are watching this, if you go to our website at www.defeatingepilepsy.org and go under our community resources, we have our nutrition page there with Dr. Kate's information. So if you are curious about learning how to improve your care and you'd like to schedule a meeting with her, her calendar is up there. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you want to learn more about the benefits of having a health coach. Well, that is all we have for today. Again, I want to thank Kate for coming and taking part. To see the great work we are doing, please like our social media pages and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We invite you to visit our website at www.defeatingepilepsy.org to see how we are making a difference for the epilepsy community. Thank you for your support, and together we will defeat epilepsy. Take care.